Hello, my name is Mary. In this series of videos, I'm going to attempt to take you or walk you through the steps in doing a small quantitative research project, particularly in health, and there may be slight variations if you're in a different discipline. The focus on this will be on really doing the statistics, but also writing it up in a format which we would use for a journal article. Now, I'm recording this on the fly. I haven't really planned out each section. So my goal is to try and break it up into shorter videos on clearer topics. And in this first one, I'm just going to walk you through the whole overview of what the project should look like at the end when we're writing it up. And the context is I'm going to use the Titanic data. So as an overview, I think it's a good idea to actually read some journal articles, read some papers. Even if you don't read all the details, have a look at the sections and have a look at what goes where, because it really is very helpful in writing to have a look at a lot of examples. Now, what I'm assuming that you already know before undertaking a small quantitative research project is that you have some familiarity with published journal articles. And I've got the BMJ open here because I'm going to look at that in the next video. I'm assuming that you've done a first course in statistics so that you're familiar with techniques such as a t-test, analysis of variance, a simple regression model, hopefully logistic regression, a chi-squared test, but I'm not assuming any advanced techniques. So the whole process really begins with an observation. That's the way science begins. We have an observation and we go, oh, that was interesting. I wonder why. And then from that, we come up with a research question. And then from the research question, we design a study to collect data, which we then analyze to try and answer that research question. So the whole process really needs to start with an observation. And this can be a little bit artificial in student projects because often this is provided for you. It's not an observation you make for yourself, or you're struggling to see the relevance because you're given almost part of an observation or part of a story and you're trying to do more research and then turn it into a full research question. So in the next video, I will look at writing the research question and then also writing the title because they link together. And then whenever I think a topic's going to get too long, I'll break it into a separate video. So the abstract you would write last. It can be helpful to have little snippets, I think, to keep you on track, but really you need to start with the introduction. What's the background? What is already known? Even if this is a student project and you don't know very much, you can do a really quick search. You can find one paper, you can find one website, you can find something to give you a little bit of background information. And in this case, I've just got the National Archives with the Titanic up. I'm going to focus on the statistics rather than the sort of writing aspect of it, but I do think it's important to have just a little bit of background knowledge before you get started. The gap in the literature may be a little bit artificial if you're doing a student project. It could be that actually someone's already done a full research project on exactly what you want to know, but you're doing a replication or a second look, something like that's okay. There will be some new aspect that you can bring to it. And then you get into your research question. The research question leads into the methods because the whole point of the methods is to show that you're designing a study which can answer this research question. So they have to be linked together. You won't always need every single part of this. It may not be appropriate or necessary to have a power calculation. If you're a student, you may not even be 100% sure what analysis you're going to do. You may not know completely how many variables you're going to have if the data is being given to you or if it's a secondary data set. You may not actually know exactly how each thing has been measured, but I encourage you to look into each of these things so that you are sort of fully aware of where your data has come from and what each variable name means. Often you will write this into a plan, and so you'll have some idea of what you're doing when you come to write it up. And then it is possible that you still get lost when you get to the results and you're not quite sure where to start. So this is where I'll probably spend a lot of time in the videos, open up the data in SPSS and go through each stage of writing the results. And then finally, we have the discussion. We're looking at the interpretation. We're linking back to the literature we looked at in the introduction. We're thinking about the limitations. which could be due to the study design, could be due to difficulty in measuring what we want to measure. There's a whole host of limitations there could be. Often students write that their study is limited by a small sample size. Sure, that's fine, but there's going to be other limitations as well. So I encourage you to actually read the limitations sections of other journal articles in your area, because that will give you an idea of what can go into here. And then we think about the generalizability and future research. Depending on which journal you're aiming for, hypothetically, you may also have a short conclusion at the end, and this would usually just be one paragraph if you've had a full discussion section. There is variation between journals. Sometimes there's no discussion section, it's just results conclusion, and then the conclusion section is quite long. Sometimes you just have a discussion and no conclusion at the end. I'm sure there's other variations too in other disciplines. So that's the overview of what I'm going to look at. In the next video, I'm going to talk about writing the research question based briefly on this bit and having a quick look through here, and then coming up with a title that would be, let's say, appropriate if I was going to hypothetically submit it to the BMJ.